Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
Live at lunch.
You are looking live.
Live at lunch. Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
What the hell's going on out here?
Now, here's Jimmy Ott and Charles Hannegriff.
For some reason or another, you sound a little taller on radio.
Is it live? Is it live? Is it live?
From Mike Anderson Seafood, Wesley at Nicholson. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. I'm Charles Hannegriff along with Max Gotro. Jordan Kinchin's back in the studio. Jimmy Ott, of course, is out today. We'll be out tomorrow as well. We will all be off on Thursday and Friday as we'll take an extended break for the 4th of July. So we'll be out on Thursday and Friday as an entire show, and I'll be out the week after that, Max. So tell me goodbye tomorrow. Max brought me my Phil Steele's today, which we're going to talk about later on in the show. There's like 8 official starts of football season, right? There's the actual kickoff itself, but we back it up with for me, the first official start of football season is when I get my Phil Steele's. You get your Phil Steele's. This is the book. Look, he advertised it, and Phil's not shy to tell you when he gets stuff right, which is fine because the guy works his butt off. But when they say this is the book that we use all year, this is the book we use all year. So I got to start reading the book I'm going to use all year. That's usually what I take on vacation, which is going to be next week. So, and then you got the start of camp. You got media days, and then you get the start of camp, and then you get the start of preseason, and so on and so forth. So, got our Phil Steele's. We're going to talk a little bit about that in hour number 2 today. Today is Money Day for a lot of different people. It's Money Day. Okay. First of all, let me tell you why we're going to save you some money over here at Mike Anderson's, because celebrating the 4th of July and the National Championship LSU baseball teams, Mike Anderson's is doing $1 select martinis. There's the Freedom Teeny. That's vodka with grenadine, blue curacao, the freshly squeezed lemonade. The Stars and Stripes Teeny. With the Malibu rum, the Tiger Teenies, grape vodka with freshly squeezed lemonade and watermelon lemon drops. These are all $1 when you purchase an entree here at Mike Anderson's. This is going on all week, all the way through July the 2nd. And martinis aren't your thing if daiquiris are your thing. Shane's got his machine set up for strawberry daiquiris and pina coladas, which you can also mix, and they're having a really nice go with that. So that's what's going on from the staff here at Mike Anderson's as we get towards the holiday weekend. Now, why is today Money Day? Well, today is a historic day in the history of college athletics. Today is the first day. We've been talking about this for a long, long time, but today's the first day that you can officially pay your players from the school. This is a day that, frankly, I never really, when I was starting out in this business, never thought that we would see. And for a long time, never thought that we would see. Up until, the last 6 or 7 years when things started to come into focus a little bit with the lawsuit. And now today the House settlement goes into place, and it means that if you haven't been paying attention to this, I don't blame you. If you're just a sports fan and you're like, I want to watch the games, I don't really care about how the sausage is made, I get it. Even me, whose job it is to follow this stuff. Ross Dellinger, who's a dear friend and has done a great job of it, I kid him all the time. It's like, I remember when you used to cover sports, because the poor guy spent the last 3 years of his life, it seems like, in a courtroom more than it has been in a press box trying to figure out exactly how all this works. Wilson Alexander does a great job at The Advocate, did a nice piece on this a few days ago. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go through this. If this is review, sorry, but it feels like a lot of people are like, man, just let me know how this turns out when this is all over. And for the moment, we've reached a stopping point. So starting today, schools can pay up to $20.5 million to their athletes. Where did they come up with this number? Well, that number was taken from 22% of ticket sales, media rights, sponsorship revenues among the power conferences and Notre Dame. That goes up 4% every year and is recalculated every 3 years. So this is the least amount it's ever going to be. LSU has followed basically the formula to distribute this stuff. 75% to football, which equals $13.5 million this year. 15% to men's basketball, $2.7 million. 5% to women's basketball, which is just under $1 million, and 5% to the rest of the sports. They're going to go to great lengths to make sure that this is not circumvented, and I'm sure that they will fail spectacularly in that. Whatever mousetrap the NCAA or the courts has ever built, the schools have gotten around. They got to put money in a shoebox and put it in somebody's mailbox. They'll do that. In fact, for a long time, that's how they did it. Okay, so this is just the guidelines for this. LSU made in the last fiscal year $1.73 million. This is on a budget of right around $200 million. They made less than 1% on that in profit, and they're going to have to go in the hole a little bit at the beginning of this to get it straight. What does this mean for Bayou Traditions, which was the collective? That's still kind of up in the air. It also creates 65 new scholarships with scholarship limits and roster limits. 65 new scholarships. What does this mean? Well, we don't really pay attention to scholarships in the full scholarship sports because everybody gets a full one. Where do we pay attention to scholarships? Baseball, where from the beginning of time it's been 11.7, and if I had a 3-hour show, I would explain to you where the 11.7 scholarship number came from, but I've had it explained to me 5 times, and I'm not sure I could repeat it, so just take my word for it. Well, now you can go up to whatever you want, up to 34, but right now the SEC is not saying exactly how many they're going to, hate to use the word cap it at. 27 is not a bad number to work off of, but it probably will not be 34. So Max, what's next? You're giving them all this money. Your NIL deals can still happen. It's got to be approved by a group called the CSC, and they're going to do every deal worth more than $600. Good luck with that. It's going to be a few, I mean, LSU has roughly 450 scholarship athletes, and it's not even one of the biggest athletic departments from that standpoint in the country. They don't play really any of the country club sports like they do on the West Coast, and they don't play lacrosse or hockey or have men's wrestling teams or men's gymnastic teams or things like that. So with 21 sports, it's in the middle or even a little bit higher than the middle, but it's not like those schools that do 50 some odd sports. So good luck trying to get all of that done. What you'll see is everybody clawing for every nickel that they can get. The university's got to claw for every nickel that they can get just to be able to pay all their bills. So you're going to see logos on the field at Tiger Stadium for the first time. You're going to see eventually, I think they're trying to get this approved maybe for this year, maybe next year, patches on the lapels. And I don't know why this upsets people. So the Nike swoosh has been on the jerseys for a long time. I understand that that's who makes the doggone jersey, but still,
little different,
you see, as long as they don't end up looking like Ricky Bobby and it doesn't end up looking like NASCAR, I think we're okay. So nobody's wild about how all this is going.
It starts somewhere, right?
But this is where it starts today. I'm most interested in the distribution in the rest of the sports after football. Okay, because I look at this, LSU's putting $13.5 million to football. That's just off of this number. There's way more money than that going into this roster in other ways, but just off of the revenue sharing, they're going off of this. Okay, the men's basketball is $2.7 million. Okay, my first thought is that ain't enough. They tell me now that a starter, an above-average starter, costs just under $1 million now. $800,000, $700,000, $800,000. Okay, so by my Franklin math, you ain't going to get 5 starters for $2.7 million, but I guess everybody else is operating under the same caps. $900,000 for women's basketball and $900,000 for the rest of the sports. The $900,000 for women's basketball seems like that's about right for what they've been allocating towards. If you just look at what staffing is, okay, that looks about right. That's way more than I imagine a lot of other schools are spending, but LSU puts a premium on women's basketball, so okay. I do wonder where the baseball money is coming from, because LSU puts a pretty big premium on baseball. So you say a $900,000 to be divvied up between the 18 other sports. Well, I kind of want baseball to get more. And there'll be some sports that don't really get any. But anyway, today's Money Day. If you care about something, that's a brief few-minute refresher on what we're actually doing today.
Now there's still NIL money on top of that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that does
it's
not
supposed
go
to
away.
be. It's supposed to be real NIL. Do you think it's going to be real NIL? I don't.
I don't think so.
Because real NIL is stuff like what Angel Reese did at Mercedes of Baton Rouge, or what Jaden Daniels did at Raising Cane's. Those are superstars that have real value. I mean, Livy Dunn's the queen of that program, but those are real NIL deals. You're not going to tell me that all of these deals are going to be real NIL deals. They're going to be deals that are designed to get kids to campus, incentive for money. How much is a text worth? Okay, how much is a social media post worth? I don't know. I do know that the first one that gets denied, they're going to get sued. I mean, the very first one. As soon as the first one I think got done in a few minutes, it was a low-level deal. They said, look, we can operate very quickly. Okay, let's see. 100% they're going to get sued the first time they deny one of these deals. And then we're all going back to court all over again. So that all starts today.
It's greed and incompetence in the past that's put in there.
Yeah, sure.
They let
denied
this go to legal sort of ways, and now it's arguably as complicated, if not more, than it was before. Before it was under the table, and you could kind of just it worked that way, right?
Yeah,
if you had value, you got paid under the table. If you didn't, then you didn't get paid. You just went to school, you went to college. But they let this get somewhere, in part because of greed and incompetence in, I don't know, just letting Johnny Manziel sign autographs and making money that way. That is based on value. That doesn't hurt the players, but that's what the joke of, air quotes, amateurism of what that means, formerly, that's what put them in this situation. I don't think they're here if they let some of those things happen.
You know what their biggest fear was for years? You know why the term student athlete was invented in the first place by, if I'm not mistaken, the head of the NCAA at the time was Walter Byers. Their biggest fear back then was they didn't want to pay workman's comp insurance. That was the whole deal. Is if the student athletes, which they invented that term, became employees, and they got hurt, the school was going to be liable for it. They didn't want any part of that. So
I just don't know that they're employees right now.
They're not.
They're close to it.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think they're in this boat. If they just let them do some of the other things in the past.
Right. Well,
they got pushed to do this because of just how far their greed and incompetence went.
If they had collectively bargained this, they'd be in a lot better shape. All right, it's Money Day for other people. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP of the Oklahoma City Thunder, the MVP of the league, and the world champions at this point, signed the biggest contract in NBA history, a 4-year Supermax extension for $285 million. The extension will pay him $63 million in the 28 season, $68 million the year after that, $73 million the year after that, $78 million the year after that. You're a big SGA fan, right?
I wouldn't. Look, he's a great player. He's a great player. I don't want to minimize him. He's in a small market, whatnot. He's a little bit hard to watch at times. I wouldn't go against him by any means. He deserves the money.
He has earned the money. His team is a championship team, and he's the right age for this in his mid-20s. So all of that checks out. And I realize that the money goes up for everybody. As the years go by. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who retired as the leading scorer in the history of the NBA, made less than $20 million in his career. SGA is going to make 63 this year, but I'll stay away from that. And my personal favorite on Money Day, July 1st. You know what today is?
Bobby
Bonilla. If you celebrate Bobby Bonilla Day, today is your day.
How many more years do we have on this?
Till 2035.
Wow.
Bobby Bonilla. And if you miss this every year we do this. Bobby Bonilla was owed $5.9 million from the Mets in 2020. In 2000. He agreed to defer instead of that $5.9 million coming to him to be paid right about $1.2 million, right at just under $100,000 a month, to be paid on July 1st of every year. Well, right about $1.2 million from 2011 through 2035. He's doing pretty well. Bobby Bonilla will be 73 years old when all of this is done. I'd rather be Max Scherzer, though. Who's Scherzer playing for these days? It ain't the Nationals, right?
He's with Toronto now,
Yeah,
right?
He's with Toronto. And Scherzer is paid $15 million today from the Nationals. He'll get that this year, next year, the year after that, and the year after that. And if you think that's crazy, Shohei Ohtani took $680 of his $700 million in salary and deferred it. And he doesn't start getting paid for another 10 years on that. Thus endeth today's money.
I would just say the
money
Bucks.
talk.
The Bucks are honoring Bobby Bonilla Day. They're pushing Damian Lillard's contract back 5 years. They're going to stretch out his remaining salary as they waived him.
They cut him.
They cut him, so they're going to push it out, and that's how they were able to sign Miles Turner. And hopefully that's how they'll keep Giannis happy. You know that they're building around him with something. Lillard was going to be out next year with a torn Achilles. So, Miles Turner, they bring him in. Maybe that'll keep the Bucks happy, and maybe that'll keep the Pelicans from giving up a number one overall
A week
pick
ago,
or
this
something.
would have really bothered me. I didn't want the Bucks getting better a week ago. Now I don't care as much because they don't have – the Pelicans have no skin in that game anymore. They don't they have no rights to the Bucks pick. I mean, that's the Hawks' problem now. But the Bucks waived Dame Lillard. We're here at Mike Anderson's, right here at the Oyster Bar. Looking forward to getting some oysters on the half shell as soon as we are done here today. Coming to get your char-grilled oysters as well. They're fantastic here at Mike Anderson's. Again, they're celebrating both the 4th of July and the National Championship LSU Tiger baseball team. With $1 select martinis, you purchase an entree, you get a $1 martini. The Freedom, Stars and Stripes, the Tiger Teenies, and the Watermelon Lemon Drop, all really refreshing, fruity, light summertime cocktails. You get them here at Mike Anderson's all the way through Friday the 4th of July. Live at lunch here from Mike Anderson's, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Yes, indeed. Don't forget our friends at K&M Automotive on Segan Lane. Segan and Perkins, between Perkins and I-10, right across from Ambrosia Bakery. So whatever, hey, your engine light comes on, bring it on in. Belts, hoses, wheels, tires, general services like AC repair, AC service, undercar services, transmission work, electrical work, electronic, whatever you need on your vehicle, bring it to Jason Payne, because what you want in a mechanic, his auto maintenance work is a fair deal. You've heard the horror stories of getting upcharged for unnecessary work. Not the case at K&M Automotive. 8445 Segan Lane, Segan but Perkins, across from Ambrosia Bakery. We're open 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Tell Jason you heard me talking about it right here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. It's the only place I take my vehicle. K&M Automotive on Segan Lane.
Live at lunch with Ott and Yanni from Mike Anderson Seafood on Lee Drive on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Remember, you can always get the show on demand, 1045ESPN.com, LouisianaSports.net. Final handicast that was wrapping up the the baseball season was posted last week. So if you want to recap the baseball season with me and Dan Canterbury, that's up on YouTube right now. Also, $1 select martinis all week long here at Mike Anderson, celebrating the 4th of July and the national champions from LSU for baseball. The Pels made a move yesterday. They signed Kevon Looney to a deal, 2 years, $16 million. Veteran big that is 29 years old now. He's been with the Golden State Warriors since 2016, which means he's got 3 rings, averaged 4.5 points, 6 rebounds a game last season. The Pels roster is starting to take shape, whether you are encouraged by it or not. Here's what I want to see. Right now, if you had to say, you're starting 5, Jordan Poole, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Zion Williamson, Yves Missi, right?
It could be Looney, but it doesn't really matter who starts at center. He's going to play like 15 minutes. So whether it's Missi or him,
he played 15 minutes a game last year, which was a low going back to when he really broke into the rotation with Golden State. That means coming off the bench, at least for now, Jose Alvarado, Jeremiah Fears, a first-round pick out of Oklahoma, Jordan Hawkins, if they don't waive him or move him to create a little bit of money, Sadiq Bey, provided he's healthy, Derek Queen from Maryland, Looney, who they just picked up, and Carlo Martovic.
Markovic, yeah.
I always mispronounce it. That's going to be different if that team actually gets on the floor. And with the Pelicans, you're always, are they going to get on the floor? Now, Looney played 76 games last year. He has, over the past 4 seasons, averaged 78 games a year. Sounds a lot like DeJounte Murray when he got to New Orleans, right? Murray had averaged 74 points a game, 74 games a season, and he had done that while being the primary ball handler for Atlanta and before that San Antonio. So we're talking about a lot of usage, and immediately got hurt. Jordan Poole last year for the Wizards played in 68 games. Looney played in 76 games. That's pretty good. And Missi played in 73 games for New Orleans. How many of these other guys play? Herb Jones played 20 games last season. Zion Williamson played 30 games last season. Trey Murphy played 53 games last season. Jose Alvarado played 56 games last season. This is going to be really new. I don't know if it's going to be any good. I would say that the Pels over-under on wins, when we get that, will probably be, I'm going to take a guess at this before we get it, Max. I'm going to say Pels win total will be somewhere in the low 30s. I'm going to say 30, 32.
I would go higher than that.
Higher than that, okay.
It's
They're
under,
still playing the Western Conference now.
It's under 41. That would be 41
That's
and
break
41.
even, okay. But 41 will get you in the playoffs, or at least in the play-in. I'm going to say
not always. Not always.
No, you're right. Not always, but you got a better chance.
We might not have win totals out.
No, I don't think we do. I'm asking you to speculate. So it's what we do here in July. We speculate about things that we think are going to
35 and a half.
35 and a half. How many games can you expect? Zion's supposed to be your franchise guy. How many games are you expecting out of him?
His average is just about half the games, right?
No, it's a little under. It's a little under.
I'll go above. I'll go right at 80. I'll go 44 and a half.
I'll take under.
I think, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm going to take under. You're going to have to go really low. You would have to go underneath his games played for last year to get me to go over.
It's probably higher than that, actually, Charlie, just because there's a couple seasons where he missed the entire year, and you kind of have to that brings your average down quite a bit. So if you take those seasons out, and we don't expect him to miss the entire season
well, how many years has he missed? Has he missed fewer than 20 games? 2 out of the 6?
2 of the 6, yes.
Yeah, and 2 of the 6 he missed pretty much entirely?
Right.
Okay. I'm setting my Pelicans win total at 33. I'm going to put my Zion games played total a little bit higher than that. I'm going to put it at 38, something like that. Now, I do think Trey Murphy, I thought that injury was more flukish, okay? I thought Murphy is an unbelievably well-conditioned athlete, and he doesn't take a lot of beating. Okay, he doesn't spend a ton of time. He goes to the goal, but he doesn't get beat up. At least when I watch him play, I think Trey Murphy can play 75 games.
Well, we'll have to see if he starts, if he's ready to go for the start of the season.
If he's healthy,
he's coming in. He's probably going to ramp up hopefully in October is when they're kind of, that's about when the start of the season is. So
also the start
we'll
of the
see.
season.
I mean, he's coming off a torn labrum. That's a tough timeline for him. So I don't know if he'll be exactly 100% by the start of the year.
Let me put it another way. I expect him to play 80 to 85% of the games once he is declared healthy.
Sure.
But moving forward. He doesn't strike me as an injury risk. That struck me as a fluke. I would have said the same thing about DeJounte Murray, except there were multiple flukes last year, and maybe that was all just bad luck too. And Herb Jones. Now, Herb Jones does do an awful lot of the dirty work. And last year, he got hurt for the first time in his Pelicans career. He only played 20 games. I think Herb was a really durable guy the first 4 or 5 years he was in the league. I'm going to say that was a fluke. Although at this point he's one of the few defensive assets that they have. So he was already getting the number one assignment every night. Now he's got to even ramp that up, because where's the defense going to come from? Please tell me. How many other defense? Alvarado is. I would say is a defensive asset to them when he plays, because he is aggravating.
Sure.
I understand you can
He's
body
undersized,
him. You can body him up, and he's a smaller guy.
He makes the most of his
yes, he is active. Can we use that word?
Sure.
Active on defense. So what you think that looks? Poole, Jones, Murphy, Williamson, Missy, the 2 draft picks, Alvarado, Bay, and Looney, and Makovic. That's a playoff team?
No,
that's a play-in team?
Probably not. Maybe a play-in team. Hope if you're on the hopeful side of things.
That's 12th. That's 12th. I'll hold with that prediction. The Pelicans will finish 12th in the Western Conference, and LSU basketball finished 12th in the SEC, which would be an improvement.
Pels would have a lottery pick.
No, they wouldn't.
Well, they would be in a lottery position.
Atlanta would.
To Atlanta, exactly.
Atlanta would.
That's a problem here, and I don't think the Pelicans are done. They might have a sign and trade. They might have a trade. I think they might fill out the roster. The money is kind of tight at this point with the Looney contract.
Isn't that aggravating too? That the money's tight. I mean, the Nets stink, right? But they got a lot of money. Eventually, they may be able to.
Well, the second Abram has changed a lot of teams.
Yeah,
that's reserved a lot of. So the Pelicans are not alone.
How can you be bad and broke at the same time?
A problem. Yeah, it is a problem. I would just point out that Kevon Looney, he's apparently a good locker room guy. He's actually you're old now. He's your veteran player.
29. Yeah,
he's the most
experienced
nice player.
I don't have a problem with most of these guys in a vacuum. Okay, the 2 kids that they drafted. I liked both of them, okay? Not how they went about getting one of them necessarily. I like Trey Murphy, but he's got to play. I like Herb Jones, but he's got to play. I like DeJounte Murray, but he's got to play. I have become disenchanted with Zion Williamson just because I don't think he can get on the floor, and they invested so doggone much in him. My frustration is boiled over, but
here's the problem I have with Looney. You sign him 2 years, $16 million.
Mm-hmm.
Brooke Lopez yesterday went for 2 years, $18 million.
But Brooke Lopez wouldn't have come here.
He would not have come here, but that's sort of the business you're doing, right?
I realize
that's where you are.
Since
you're not a contender,
nobody
you have
with
to
other
overpay.
real option is going to come there. I mean, Looney's a spare piece on a just about aged out of basketball championship window for the Warriors. Okay, he's expendable at this point. When they were a championship team, he was a valuable spare piece. He no longer is.
I'm not saying the Pels could have afforded Brooke Lopez, but you just see that. That's the difference. NBA teams that are contending actually make good signings in terms of money, and that you can't do that right now.
Brooke Lopez wants to be on a contender. Okay, we talked about Chris Paul a little bit yesterday. What does Paul want to do? What for presumably will be his last season? Does he want to play for a contender, or does he want to play, in New Orleans? He didn't go after a ring last year. That's why he was going to San Antonio. You knew wasn't going to get a ring. I just hate being bad and broke at the same time. That's the rough part.
I'm with you on that one.
We're brought to you by Louisiana Health and Injury Centers, helping you deal with pain. Dr. Michael Goff and his staff done a great job for us over the years. Man, a little back pain. You want to talk about stop what you're doing. neck pain, shoulder soreness, muscle soreness, the things that maybe are lingering from an old injury, an automobile accident, or an old sports injury, or just as you get a little bit older, things start to hurt, let them bring you in for an adjustment. Let them work you into a program that will target your problem areas and get you to feel better so you get a good night's sleep and you can move around like you'd like to. Airline Highway, Plank Road, Jefferson Highway near Drusilla, Dr. Michael Goff, Louisiana Health and Injury Centers. Take a break here. Andy Isco with us when we come back live at Mike Anderson's Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
It is talking season. Don't forget over here, our lunch menu. We've got a lot of different menu items available over here at Doe's that are not available for dinner, like our different sandwiches, a club sandwich, the hamburger. You could do it, we dress it up with different cheeses and aiolis and toppings and grilled onions and bacon and all that kind of stuff. The hot chicken sandwich, you can get it fried and dipped in Nashville style, or you can get it blackened, you can get it grilled, or fried and by itself. Brioche bun, really good stuff. Man, they do a great job of it. Po' boys over here, seafood po' boys, roast beef po' boys, meatball po' boy, one of the hidden secrets over here, and a black and blue cheese, a black and blue steak and cheese. A po' boy as well. Salads, we've got that, and plate lunches like spaghetti and meatballs, hamburger steak, fried catfish platter, and country fried steak. You can get it with the hand-cut fresh fries or the mashed potatoes.
Heading out to Las Vegas, deep in the desert, lives one man. One man of many sports bets. The one and only Andy Isco.
And return here at Mike Anderson's. $1 select martinis when you get an entree. Come check them out this week. They are 4th of July National Championship select martinis for only $1 here at Mike Anderson's. Let's bring in Andy Isco. Andy, good afternoon. How are you?
I am fine. I was just informed about the passing of Jimmy's father, so I want to send out my condolences and sympathies to Jimmy and his family and his many friends, etc., on the passing. I know it's always difficult when you lose a parent, and for a guy especially so when you lose a father. So I know what he's going through, and I will just say to him and to all those who knew and loved his father to cherish the memories.
Andy, I really appreciate that, and I know Jimmy will too. So I will pass that along. I think he's had a chance to listen a little bit the last couple of days. So I really appreciate you saying that, and I know Jimmy does as well. On July 1st, what is occupying your time? Let me give a multiple choice question here. You are A, intently following Major League Baseball, B, following the NBA moves in the hopes that there are some advantages created when some of these lines open, C, working on college and NFL futures, totals, whatever, or D, you know what, I need to get away from this for a little bit, and I'm just going to take a little bit of time and do some other things.
I would say it's time-wise, well, probably a little bit more with 3 at this point, with the college and pro football preparation, but also heavily involved daily on Major League Baseball. I really don't do much at this point as far as following, other than very casually, the NBA moves, because there's not much that I'm going to be doing as far as getting involved in that. There's so much time between now and the start of the season, and it would involve tying money up as far as your bankroll goes to do anything, as far as, for example, playing any of the props that might be out there or playing any of the futures for the NBA. So I really don't, other than just for chatting's sake or whatever, I may follow them, but even that I haven't really begun to do. And as far as getting away and everything, that's what, for me, the months of, let's say, February through April or through May are once football season winds down. And, of course, we're in the latter stages of the college basketball season at that point. And the NBA is pretty much in mid-season, and it's not quite as difficult to follow the NBA as it is to follow college basketball and certainly college football as well. So I'm getting in the excited that the season is getting much closer as it is now. The other thing I'll throw in, I am working, of course, on the signing the people up for the football contest, which is picking up now that we're into July. And I will point out, for those of you who may not be aware, the Westgate, that of course has sponsored the long-running Super Contest for the NFL. I think it started in I want to say 1988 or 89. I've been in it every year since I moved out here in '91. But they are introducing a new college football contest, college only, that'll run 14 weeks, and it's a reasonable. It's a $500 entry fee. But it's the one contest since the Golden Nugget isn't doing theirs this year, which was a combination of college and pro. So I'm excited looking for that. Of course, all the magazines are out. You probably know Phil Steele's magazine on college football came out within the last week. Of course, I think they ought to just since I think it's like 1995, they ought to at least throw in a magnifying glass with it.
Well, and the glossary at the front, which I know all the terms now, but when I first started reading Phil Steele, I didn't know what VHT meant. I do now, but I didn't understand what very highly touted, and it wasn't for me with that. Well, yeah, and as you mentioned that, Max was kind enough to go out and pick up books for all of us yesterday. So yeah, got that handed to me. I know what I do, Andy, but I'm curious.
I was going to say the mainstream media. Still sort of a combination between betting and mainstream, but Athlon and Lindy's, they each put out a college and a pro, and those have been out for about 3 or 4 weeks. So there's a lot of material out there. About the only one that I'm still waiting for that I use religiously is Mark Lawrence's playbook, because that is 100% devoted to betting and sports and wagering, etc. like that. So that's the one that's going to be hitting the newsstands in about a week.
Steele's book is invaluable to me for a bunch of reasons. Number one, you get a quick eyeball glance at an entire team in 2 pages. So I know everybody that they played the last 5 years. Also, for this show, know the point spreads for the last 5 years. I love the way he puts his schedules out because it lets you know when a team has a bye before that, or when a team that's you're going to play against has a bye upcoming, and you don't have to make the extra step to look at that. The stats are sorted by, this is becoming increasingly more prevalent, what they did not at this school, but what they did at the previous school. It saves you a lot of steps. It saves you a lot of having to look multiple places for information.
It saves you a lot of clicks on the Internet trying to track down all that information. By the way, I will mention, as far as the Mark Lawrence book goes, that a lot of folks probably have used for years, is specifically, as I mentioned, and that does point out, it has a lot of good information, how coaches do both college and pro in various situations before and after buys with extra rest, things like that. That's the thing that we take a look at during the season. And what I like to do in July and August is generally I'll buy 2 issues, 2 copies of Mark's magazine, because it's got all the information that I want. And I'll go through it and I will highlight certain things so that by the time the week rolls around for handicapping those games, I'll have done all my work that basically will tell me, key in on this game because here's what your thoughts were during the summer when you were evaluating the team before we knew anything about how they were going to perform, but where the high and low spots were on their schedule.
What information matters the most to you at this point? We can all look and do, returning starters, returning offensive production, returning experience. What before we kick one ball off to start the season, what information is most important to you?
I take in a lot of different things. You mentioned returning starters, but returning production is also important. And the reason I say that is that a lot of the players who may not have started last year because they were playing behind, let's say, Austin Genty or someone like that, but they may have had a lot of opportunities to put up totals that are reflected in the returning production, but not necessarily from someone who was a starter last year. Especially, and that goes especially for a lot of the programs that are the marquee programs that are like the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Georgias, and I'm using the SEC as an example because there's a lot of that going, the high quality of football, where a lot of players get to see playing time in the second half of those games because teams are either very comfortably ahead or they don't have that much of a drop-off. That sometimes the second stringer is just as good as the first stringer, but for the lack of the experience that the first stringer has. So I like to look at returning production as much as I do returning starters. Returning starters was something that was a very good tool, say, 25, 30 years ago when you didn't have the computing power that now and the number of websites available to track returning production. So I do take a look at returning production. I do take a look at the key losses from the previous season, but I also look back at I've always said, and especially more true probably in the NFL because it's a larger organization. Yeah, I'll often set my sights at the start of the year. Where are the good organizations? Why is Ohio State up there near the top every year? Because they've got such a good organization and a good program. Why are certain other teams not as good year in and year out? Because they don't have the continuity and they don't attract the quality athletes that the Ohio States and the LSUs and the Alabamas. Now, the most difficult part of handicapping this day in both college football and college basketball is the transfer portal and the amount of movement that there is from year to year. And that's, for example, where the information you pointed out to becomes increasingly important, and that's what in the Phil Steele magazine does, and you can read it some other places as well. What the new starter, who probably would have been a starter last year had they been there, but what they did at their previous school, for example, what Cam Ward did before he came to Miami last year, that was important to know as far as what you might expect. So a lot of the information is statistical, but also historical in nature that I take a look at as I start getting into the college and pro preparation. And by the way, I'm sure your listeners know that the two new FBS teams this year, Missouri State and Delaware, moving up from FCS. And they will be competing. I think it was a Sun Belt Conference USA, one of those conferences. I haven't really gotten into that yet, but those are the two new teams. So 136 FBS teams this year.
Andy, I say this with no shame at all. I did not know that. It was not on my radar today. It will be in a few weeks. I'll know them all. But
by the way, I want to point something out about that because it does bring up an important point when you're talking about handicapping and betting these games. We know that the lines maker puts up lines on every game on the board. They didn't do that for many years, and then about 10 years ago, they started putting up some of those FCS lines, and now most major sports books have those lines. Well, the lines maker can't put as much effort into handicapping Howard versus North Carolina A&T as he can on Georgia Tech versus Georgia, okay? And so if you specialize in some of those smaller conferences, now, the limits are less, but for the vast majority of the wagering public, especially those who are new to it, they are not going to be affected by some of the limits that a lot of the higher wagering people play. But the money is the same that you win. But if you can concentrate on some of those conferences like the Sun Belt or even those FCS teams, the conferences like the MEAC and the SWAC, et cetera, from your part of the country, there's money to be made in following those teams as well. Plus, because the majority of handicappers are busy handicapping the Big Ten and the ACC, et cetera, that they're not going to put in the time that the specialists would have in trying to track down student newspapers at Grambling, for example.
Andy, we always appreciate your time. Have a very good 4th of July this weekend, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week.
Thanks again. Once again, my condolences to Jimmy, his family, and his many friends, including the staff at your station.
Thank you very much. Andy Isco with us here, and he'll be, of course, providing proxy services again for the Super Contest out at Circa. Live at Mike Anderson's Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at Lunch with Ott and Yanni from Mike Anderson Seafood on Lee Drive on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Transfer portal wrapping up today, or at least the deadline is today, but there'll be a lot of movement moving forward, and LSU has added another player, another left-handed pitcher, Oregon southpaw Santiago Garcia, originally from Las Cruces, New Mexico. He was teammates with Stephen Milam in high school there, played a year at Central Arizona Community College, played for Oregon last year, 30 innings out of the bullpen, 4.20 ERA, 40 strikeouts and 19 walks with 4 saves. You're always going to see them go with the big strikeout numbers there. So Garcia moving on to LSU. Hour number 2 straight ahead here, 6 foot, 180 pounds.
Live at Lunch, first class.
I want a seat in first class where I was booked and ticketed over a month ago.
Second class.
No man should be subjected to the indignity of being labeled or treated like a second-class citizen.
And no class.
Life had become like school on Sunday. No class. I'll tell you what then. Why don't you call me sometime when you have no class?
First class, second class, and no class. Brought to you by Supreme Rice. Buy local with Louisiana-based Supreme Rice since 1936.
And we return here at Mike Anderson's, Wesley at Nicholson, where they are celebrating the 4th of July this week and the LSU National Championship baseball team at the same time with $1 select martinis. There's 4 different flavors that you can choose from. Very light, fruity cocktails that you can have with the purchase of an entree. These are only $1 all the way through this Friday, July the 4th. Freedom Teeny, the Stars and Stripes, Tiger Teeny, the Watermelon Lemon Drop, all of them for just $1 here at Mike Anderson's. Yesterday, I opened the show by doing a tribute to Coach Ott, and obviously he goes in first class. If you'd like to listen to that, it's in our on-demand section. We devoted the entire first segment to it yesterday. Some good information there about his career. If you'd like to listen to that, it's available in our on-demand section. He, of course, is in our first class, and the entire family in our prayers today. As Coach Ott passed on Sunday. So we start today fresh with first class, second class, and no class. I want to start first class. Congratulations to Robin Fambrough, the longtime writer at the Advocate, the longtime prep editor at the Advocate, announced her retirement before the start of this season in August. 34 years as the prep editor at the Advocate. This is one of the most amazing runs of prep coverage. I'll put this up against anywhere in the country for a market of any size, really, but a market of this size. Robin took over for Ted Castillo, who had been covering prep sports here since the 1950s, meaning that the Advocate has had 2 prep editors over the course of roughly 75 years, okay? These people are dedicated. Now, I've known Robin Fambrough for a long time because when I started in this business, we covered a lot of high school sports, did a lot of play-by-play, went out and covered a lot of sports. We covered recruiting pretty extensively back then before there were a million services, and so I saw Robin a lot. It was not unusual for her to be covering a game for the Advocate and me to be doing the play-by-play at Olympia or Memorial or wherever. So I got to know her over the years, shared information with her. I haven't done as much high school sports in the last 10 years as I did earlier in my career, so I haven't seen her very much recently. But I can tell you that if Robin was covering it, it was going to be done right. It was probably a big event, and she was going to get details and information on players and coaches. And when you cover the prep beat, this is a lot. You know, there's not a sports information director or a PR guy that's going to just hand you this stuff. Sometimes even getting just bare bones rosters is a challenge, and Robin always managed to do that. She spotlighted so many local athletes, probably the most famous of which was Simone Augustus, and Simone had some nice things to say about Robin. She's in the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. She's in the Sports Writers Hall of Fame, and she deserves every bit of it. So the other thing I'll tell you about Robin is she had to cover, I think, the most divisive issue in our city, outside of maybe LSU hiring football coaches, and that was the split of the LHSAA back in the early teens. It didn't matter if you had any interest in high school football at all, high school athletics really at all. You came down on one side or the other. There was no middle ground when it came to the LHSAA split between select and non-select. And I know this from having watched some of the eligibility hearings. I used to go to the reclassification meetings. Max, you ever wanted to see a knockdown drag-out, go to the reclassification meetings. We used to do that. Every 2 years they would reclassify, right. And for a lot of those years it was an all-day fight to avoid John Curtis's district. They had the computers there tracking exactly how many miles is it from this high school to this high school. She had to cover all of that, but she had to cover the split too. And I thought she did a great job of presenting both sides of the argument. And believe me, I saw it firsthand. If you were on one side of the argument, you really didn't want to hear about the other side. And I'll be honest with you, that included me even as a member of the media. I was staunchly and remain against the split. That ship has sailed long ago. I thought she did a great job of covering that, and that was not an easy topic to cover because everybody was emotional about it. It involved their kids. You know, when the professional basketball team down the street trades a player that you like or makes a move that you don't like, you go, well, okay. You know, it's a pro team. Even the college team, well, okay. But when it's high school, it's got such a higher degree of probability that it's going to involve your kid or somebody you know. And if it involves your kid, you're going to be passionate about it. And she had to navigate through that. I thought she did a great job. She's been a real credit to the profession. I congratulate her on a great career, and I consider her a friend, Robin Fambro, in first class. Second class. You know what I don't like, Max? I don't like it. A lot of people do it tongue-in-cheek early in the baseball season. They say somebody's on pace to do something, right? You know, guy comes out of the gate and hits 9 home runs in the first 3 weeks in April, and he's on pace to hit 100 and whatever. And you say, come on. Let me have a little bit of time with it. But Cal Raleigh, a switch-hitting catcher for the Seattle Mariners, once you get to halfway the season, which is roughly where we are right now, you got to start paying attention to this. Cal Raleigh homered again last night, his 33rd home run of the season. Only Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire, who both cheated, have hit more before July the 1st. His 30 home runs as a starting catcher this season are tied with Tom Hundley from 1996 as the most before August in Major League Baseball history. So this is not good with a chance to be great. He is having a great season with a chance to be historic. Hundley hit those 30 home runs back in 1996, so you're going back almost 3 decades now. Now, if you've never heard of Cal Raleigh, he's been a very productive catcher before. He has hit 30 home runs in a season, 3 seasons running. Like a lot of catchers, the batting average is not all that high in a lot of his previous years, although this year it is at 276. For his career, he is only a 228 hitter, but he's hit 30 home runs. This is now 3 consecutive seasons, and last year he drove in 100. Barring injury, he's going to go way past that. We are just a couple of games past the halfway point of the season. What might Cal Raleigh put up? Is he going to hit 50 home runs? I don't know. He could he hit 50? Could he hit 60? When you're on pace, the tough thing is, I remember the one year Reggie Jackson went to the All-Star break at 39 home runs, and it's like, Reggie, this is when I was a kid, Reggie's going to break the record, okay? He's going to hit and he ended up hitting like 11 or 12 in the second half of the season and peters out because it's a long season. It can get to you, and that's why these pacing numbers are always tough. But if you're a switch-hitting catcher and you've hit 30 home runs or more 3 consecutive seasons, and the batting average this year is up to 276, you've really done something. And they're starting to chant MVP. All is for the Seattle Mariners, who are not exactly the most exciting team in baseball. They've got a winning record. They're a few games over 500, but it's not like they're the Yankees or anything. So. Cal Raleigh.
He was a Gold Glover last year, too.
Yeah,
doing something like this when you're a catcher behind the plate every day, you just don't see it anymore. You just don't see it when you're prepping with pitchers as much as catchers do. That's why catcher numbers are normally around like 200. So his batting numbers this year are incredible. 3 years ago, I think it was 2022, we saw Aaron Judge hit 62, and we were watching live break-ins to college football games to see Aaron Judge potentially hit a home run. He had 29 homers at this point. So Cal Raleigh's ahead of that pace. Of course, that can slow down. Injuries could always happen, but he has been incredible, and he's got a great nickname in the Big Dumper. So we love Cal Raleigh.
The Big Dumper is a great nickname. A switch-hitting catcher. Outside of a left-handed reliever that throws 100 miles an hour, this is as valuable as any piece.
All those wins above replacement and all those things. Like he's got those metrics, I'm sure, locked down because doing what he's doing behind the plate and then hitting is pretty incredible.
And he's a switch hitter. Did I mention that? A switch hitting catcher. Okay, I mean this is like finding free money on the side of the road. When I think of the best switch hitters of all time, Mickey Mantle, Chipper Jones, Eddie Murray, none of them caught. I mean that's a tough thing to do. So good with a chance to be great with a chance to be historic for Cal Raleigh. We'll keep an eye on that. And no class. Max, this one's right in your wheelhouse. How long you lived over on the west side?
All my life.
All your life, okay? There is a headline, okay, if you get it online or whatever, the Advocate today, if you get the actual paper, it's on the front page. It is a headline that I'm certain they have recycled 4,000 times since I moved to Baton Rouge. New bridge for – this is not sports related, I'm sorry. I'm going off there. New bridge for Baton Rouge delayed again. Max, how would you describe – going to school in Baton Rouge on this side of the river and living on the other side of the river, or working on this side of the river and living on the other side of the river? This has been most of your life, although you are now on the east side. Okay, you moved up like George and Wheezy. You're over, but you have fought the bridge traffic your entire life. What say you that the new bridge is delayed again?
I mean, we expected this. I mean, you could have written this article, at any point.
4,000 times. I believe I've lived here long enough to comment on this. I moved here in the summer of 1989, okay, where the mayoral campaign, the most recent mayoral campaign, was based upon what? A new bridge. It was, as I was told at the time, I said, oh, good, there's going to be a new bridge soon. I was a freshman in college. I didn't know any better. I actually believed it. Oh, they're going to build a new bridge. Won't that be great? It'll alleviate some of the traffic. That was in 1989. They said they had to do a study. It's 2025. They're still doing studies. The Dead Sea Scrolls haven't been studied as much as the Baton Rouge Bridge, okay? So the biggest problem has been we have to do all these studies, environmental studies, traffic studies, population studies, traffic flow studies. I mean, they've studied more than somebody that's got 12 degrees from the Ivy League on this, and yet it's going to be delayed again. The most recent estimate, I had to laugh at this, for when the new bridge could be operational is 2023, which I will call here on the radio a
2033.
2033, what did I say? 2033.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a big fat lie, okay? If there is a bridge, a new bridge in Baton Rouge in 2033, provided I'm still here, good Lord willing, I will walk backwards across it, okay, in the middle of the day.
And actually, that would be moving faster than traffic moves over it a lot of times.
They're not going to build a new bridge in our lifetime. They're not. This is 36 years worth, and that's just since I've been here, okay? As I understand it, the 10 to 12 years, the bridge that we go over is still referred to as the new bridge. It's over 50 years old, okay? That should give you an idea. They're not going to build this thing. They're going to upset some armadillo down in Iberville Parish, okay? So they're not going to build this thing. They're just going to keep giving us this over and over again. And if you think I'm complaining for a reason, you're right. I got Nicholson Drive paved. Okay,
yes.
That was me.
I
did that. Okay?
Credit to Charles Hannegriff.
Forget about DOTD or any councilman. I got Nicholson Drive paved by complaining. This is
surprised they haven't renamed it yet.
This is my Everest. Okay, this is my goal. Not to have me drive on this bridge. That's not going to happen. I'm not in good enough health, and I'm not young enough. Okay, my grandson is 5. Okay. He's got an outside shot to drive on a new bridge in Baton Rouge.
I'd like to think I will eventually get to drive over one. Hopefully I'll live long enough to see that day. I'm sure it'll get delayed.
You're in better shape than me, Max.
It will get delayed. I think eventually it will happen. But yes, this is long. Like to say long overdue. That's a joke. That's not the right phrasing for it. I'll say when we used to have Jimmy Out's game time from 6 to 8.
Yeah.
And we'd be, downtown. We could be here at Mike Anders, just wherever, around town, not far over the bridge for me. I would commute over the bridge, and I would have to account for at least an hour of traffic every single day, Monday through Friday when I did this job. And, some days it's just such a part of your schedule that you don't really think about it. But then there are days where you're just sitting and you're not moving, and you feel the bridge shaking, as you always do when you're just stuck. In park, basically. You could turn your car off and go walk around, I guess, if you wanted to. When you do that every day, there are days where you realize just how much time you're wasting every single day of your life just sitting in traffic. And that's just what I understand if there are people who live in Baton Rouge who think traffic's bad, but if you're coming from West Baton Rouge and you're not coming through it, on the interstate already, and the interstate is bad, but if you're trying to get onto the bridge from Plaquemine, Bruley, Addis, Port Allen, Irwinville, anything like that, you're accounting for hours each day for weeks upon years upon all that of your life. It is unbearable, but eventually, maybe one day we'll get surprised with a new bridge.
If you are a truck driver, okay, and your route is from one coast to the other, from Southern California to Florida, the one part of the drive you hate the most, I mean, this is worse than West Texas where there's just miles and miles of nothing, is the drive through Baton Rouge, because you're going to get stuck on the bridge. It doesn't matter what day it is. It doesn't matter what hour. You're going to get stuck on the bridge 9 times out of 10. And if we sit here in Mike Anderson's right now, survey the next 10 people that come in, next 50 people that comes in, next 100 people that come in, everybody that comes into this restaurant from now until the 4th of July, till the end of the week, and you ask them, you think we need a new bridge in Baton Rouge? How many of them would say, yes, we need a new bridge in Baton Rouge?
I'd pay for a toll. I'd have it go over my house.
All of them. 101% of the people surveyed would say you need a new bridge in the city. But this is a classic case of everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, okay? Everybody wants a new bridge, but nobody can figure out where to put it or how to pay for it, or who's going to get the contract to build it, or any of this.
Well, they need
I
the
didn't
money.
even read the damn article.
They need the money
actually, I
for
did
it.
read the
It's
article,
really
but
the
I didn't want to
biggest
read the
amount.
article because I knew what it was going to say. We can't figure out where to put it. We can't figure out how to pay for it. We can't figure out who's going to build it. So they just recycle this headline again. So, Max, I'm sorry. I know you live on this side of the river now, but for your family and stuff that live over there, the new bridge has been delayed again. But any minute now.
Just to be clear, without traffic, it is a 10-minute drive to Tiger Stadium from where I grew up, and it is routinely, not even in rush hour sometimes, just at 2 o'clock on an afternoon, an hour and 15 to get to Tiger Stadium, and that's not on a game day.
You know when you could have driven to Tiger Stadium in 10 minutes? The day the Saints were in the Super Bowl. Because nobody was on the road.
Yeah.
That's the one day, probably in your lifetime, that you could have actually made it from where you lived in Bruley to Tiger Stadium in 10 minutes. Every other day, forget about it. First class, second class, no class, brought to you by Supreme Rice and SupremeRice.com. As we get closer towards tailgating, tailgate with Supreme Rice, the long grain, the medium grain, the brown, the jasmine, the parboiled rice, restaurant quality rice that you can make for your stews, your jambalayas, your white beans, your red beans. Make it Supreme Rice and support our Louisiana farmers, because since 1937 down in southwest Louisiana, all of our Supreme Rice grown, milled, and processed here in Louisiana. Benefits Louisiana farmers, benefits our local economies, and of course you're going to get it at a better price. So pick it up at your local Walmarts, your Rouse's, all of your AG food stores, wherever you buy rice. Make it Supreme Rice. And of course, the Climate Smart program ensures that future generations of Louisiana farmers will continue to reap the benefits here. They're talking about methane emission reductions and water conservation. Look for the Climate Smart logo on all Supreme Rice packaging. Supreme Rice and SupremeRice.com. Live at Mike Anderson's, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Don't forget, First, Second, No Class, brought to you each and every Tuesday, rather by our friends over at Supreme Rice. Make every meal supreme, whether it's their medium grain rice, the long grain rice, the medium brown grain rice, or the jasmine rice. That jasmine rice, what is it? It's a premium variety of rice developed by right here on campus at the LSU Rice and Research Center. Maybe that's why Schmitty chose LSU. Jasmine has the aroma of popcorn and nut-like flavor. It's an excellent choice for stir-fry, salad, stuffing, pilafs, and desserts. You can learn more about this premium American-grown rice at SupremeRice.com.
Live at lunch with Ott and Yanni from Mike Anderson Seafood on Lee Drive on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
And we return here at Mike Anderson's. Again, select martinis for $1 all the way through July 4th when you come in and get an entree. We're also brought to you by the Thibodeau Store, 900 St. Patrick Highway in Thibodeau, and online, thethibodeaustore.com. Cajun cooking specialty cookware shipped right to your door right off of the website, but also right now on the website. You can get great specials on a number of grills: the Shop Pit Boss, the Shop Charbroils, the Shop Triggers are all on special right now. Big Green Egg Cookers, the ultimate cooking experience, also available on the website. Patio Furniture, right now you can get some significant discounts on that at the Thibodeau store. Of course, all your hand tools, all your power tools for key cutting, paint matching, propane services, screening, glass repair, lots of fishing gear available also if you're heading down to the coast at the Thibodeau store. Again, 900 St. Patrick Highway in Thibodeau. The Pierreport store, their sister property in Pierreport, been open for over 113 years. Thibodeau store and thethibodeaustore.com. All right, Max. You went book shopping and before the show today, and we got Phil Steele in our hot little hands. I put mine in my bag. I haven't had a chance to even open it yet, but you've been perusing since yesterday when you got these things. Give me a couple of highlights, things that have caught your attention so far.
Yeah, just combing through it here. Get a good chance to look at it on an airplane tomorrow, but yeah, we've got. Let's start with LSU.
Yeah, we want to do some LSU stuff.
Let's start with LSU. So we mentioned it before, but he has LSU listed as his number 11 preseason ranking. Number 11, just outside the top 10. Yep. I do find it a little interesting. He has Oklahoma number 9. So he has Oklahoma as a better team than LSU coming into this season. That's his number 1 surprise team, which is what he considers an AP preseason top 10 team. So takes them out of it. Outside the top 10, do you have a chance of making the playoff, contending for a national title? So he likes Oklahoma. Of course, they bring in John Mateer from Washington State. They've got Jade Knott from Cal, the running back. And just interesting because I haven't really considered, Oklahoma being the last game of the year. Last year was kind of a pretty meaningless game at that point. LSU won rather comfortably, even though they lost, Garrett Nussmeier at a point in the game. He ended up returning, but just the first ever trip to Norman, what that game could bring. Let's say LSU loses the opener against Clemson, maybe drops an SEC game somewhere along the way. Avoiding a third loss to Oklahoma to end the season, that could be a very big game. And I don't think we've really considered that Oklahoma, since they've joined the SEC, playing LSU, could be a really challenging opponent in what could be a very meaningful game, and this time it'll be on the road.
I don't want to say it's a miracle, but it is certainly I think it's an outlier for Oklahoma to have a coach that has 2 losing seasons in 3 years. I know that the late John Blake, had a rough run at the end of the 90s. But when I think about Oklahoma, I think about a top 5, top 10 at worst, but really a top 5 all-time program. Since I've been following college football in the mid-'70s, Oklahoma is a top 5 program overall. And if you go back before, into the 50s and 60s, even more so. So when I see a coach at Oklahoma have 2 losing seasons out of 3 and still get a contract extension, which was ludicrous, I say to myself, okay. Usually this is grounds for firing. I think that Brent Venables, as long as their money's in line, if he goes 6-7, he's had 2 6-7 records in 3 years. One of them in the Big 12 and one of them in the SEC. So now you've lost in 2 conferences. His conference record over 3 years is below 500. It's a small miracle he still has a job, much less a contract extension. It's probably going to take a pop into the top 10 just to keep him on somewhat solid footing there. And he's got no prior track record. It's not like, they got him from this place where he, at least at Texas A&M with Jimbo Fisher, while they were complaining about him, they said, this guy won a national championship before. He's capable of doing that. You don't have that with Venables. What you have with him is an extremely accomplished coordinator who has been so far a failure as a head coach. I know you had the 1 season in between there where they go 10-3, but that 10-3 at Oklahoma for a lot of years was considered a disappointment.
Is he still here if they didn't beat Alabama the way they did at the end of last year?
Is that what saved him?
I don't think the voice, the crowd was that loud, the fever around him. maybe losing his job. But I mean, that was a great showing for them. In a season that was mostly lost, that was a tremendous showing.
He went 6-7, then he went 10-3, and they gave him a contract extension. And right out of the contract extension, he goes 6-7 and 2-6 in the league. So this is a Herculean jump.
They had a gauntlet of a schedule last year, compared to Texas. So you maybe give them
that's true. I'll give you that. They were 2-6 in the league. I mean, you're playing 8 games in the league. They were 2-6.
Yeah. They're 4 of their wins came out of conference against pretty bad opponents. Tulane, I guess, was a decent one, but Maine, Temple, Houston, that doesn't really move the needle. They bring in a new offense coordinator this year who actually was John Mateer's offense coordinator at Washington State, so there's a little bit of familiarity there between Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer. But yeah, we'll see. There's a lot of weight on Mateer's shoulders. Can he be one of these great Oklahoma quarterbacks now in the SEC this time around? I will say, from the Manning Passing Academy, we mentioned it yesterday, but he, as much as he sidearms a bit of a unique, flow about him, he runs a lot. He's probably a 4.5, 4.55 type of runner, and he's big. That's the one thing I really got away from him. Other than his throwing motion being a little unique, he is big enough to sustain hits in the SEC. Where he's coming from Washington State, they didn't even have a real conference last year. They played a bunch of softies in the Mountain West and whatnot, but he can, I think, stay healthy considering his frame, if he runs a lot for them.
I thought Mateer was a good quarterback. If Nussmeier had gone pro, he would have been near or at the top of my list for guys I would have wanted LSU to go out. People that were actually available. Mateer would have been very, very high, maybe at the complete top of that list. You were going to talk about LSU.
Yeah, just one other thing. When you look through this magazine, there's a lot of things we'll get to, but he does do individual unit rankings. So quarterback units, running back units, defensive line, and ranks LSU among the national title contenders in some of those categories. So at quarterback, he has them number 2, right behind Clemson. Okay, Klubnik. So right out of the gate, the top 2 quarterback units in Phil Steele's.
I don't want to go through every one. I want to. If you ask me what is their highest rank besides quarterback, because that's just one. If you ask me what their highest rated group was, I would say probably the linebackers. If he's counting Harold Perkins as a linebacker,
he has them 11th. 11 in the linebacker units. Wide receivers actually the next group at 3rd.
Okay, that requires him to take a leap of faith because you're going to have Barrion coming. You're going to have Anderson coming, who didn't play for LSU last year, but they were productive where they were.
Now he's lumping tight ends into that unit as well. So when you include Bauersharp and Trey'Dez Green, that's certainly a part of this. So when you include the tight ends, I think that makes sense why they'd be top 5.
Okay, that requires you to make the assumption that the production that those guys had other places, and for Anderson, you're going back 2 years, that you think that translates. And I think it can. I'm a little bit bullish on this roster right now, so I'm fine with that. I'm a little surprised he gave him as much. And it also implies that Trey'Dez Green is going to take the next step, which I hope. I hope he spends the offseason running routes because even when he runs them wrong, they still can't cover him. So learn to run the routes right. He could be a dangerous guy.
Phil Steele has LSU 28th among defensive back units. So you think about DBU, they've struggled there, but they've got a lot of transfers. So it's a lot of unfamiliar names. We'll see how they gel together.
Yeah, I can't argue with that right now because DJ Pickett hasn't yet stepped on the field. I don't know where Mansour Delane. I'm not sure exactly what his role is. There's a lot of different ways you could go at safety. I'm actually not in disagreement with him there. If I had to put an outside set of eyes on this thing, that's probably where I'd have him too.
And just the one other thing when it comes to the offense,
huge upside. But nothing,
no doubt.
But nothing guaranteed.
Yeah, I think that's where you have to put them, for now, until you really see it. But, offensively, last year we expected LSU to run the ball more, be a more traditional offense.
We thought the offensive line would be good.
Exactly. And, the offensive line, he's got ranked outside the top 40, so there's still some uncertainty there. But he does have the running back group as number 12th in the country. So, you have some talent in the backfield. Can you use them? Can you block for them? Because Nussmeier is certainly going to change the way defenses look at you, and that's what defenses did last year, where they just didn't run the ball enough. Are they going to be able to run the ball effectively to balance out the passing game?
I don't have a problem with that ranking for the offensive line. If I was outside this market and I said they were supposed to be a really good offensive line last year and they underachieved, and you took the two best players off of it and moved them to the NFL, and if you went out and looked at spring, they never had, for any amount of time, if at all, the five guys that I think are going to end up starting at their current positions in the opener together in the spring for a couple of different reasons. That's fine. Again, I think there's some upside here. I think you got a couple of really good freshmen, a couple of really good transfers that are going to make this a better unit. But if I got to pick it right now, I mean, you took the highest rated lineman, the highest drafted lineman in the history of the school off of a unit that underachieved. And another, second-day draft choice besides that, you had a mismatch in the spring.
Oh, no, I don't think this is a real surprise. He's telling you that
that's fair.
What offensive line, that's your major question mark. What can this unit do? Can they protect Garrett Nussmeier, keep him upright? Can they get the running game going? Defensively, corners, secondary.
Mm-hmm.
That was a bit of a weakness the last few years. Can they make that next step with all the transfers they brought in?
Where does he have the defensive line rated? Because this is the biggest influx of what I would say is proven talent from other places.
Just inside the top 25, number 22.
That's probably a reflection more of the interior guys than the edge people. But I got it. I understand why he would have that, but I've got much higher hopes for the defensive line than just outside the top 25. I think that can be a real asset if those guys can rush the passer the way I think that they can. And just one of the newcomer defensive tackles come along. If I can have McKinley and Bro play at a higher level than they did a year ago, and I thought both of those guys improved as the season went along, and Guillory is actually healthy, and I get one of the newcomers to come in, all of a sudden I've got a defensive line rotation. That's enough ifs to knock them down a little bit, but I think that could work out for LSU. We're brought to you by Coastal Capital Advisors. When it comes to retirement, listen, you got some specific goals. Wherever you are in life, whatever your age, whatever your financial situation, how much you're earning, which you can put towards retirement. You're going to tailor-make a plan that is going to work for your family. You've got business partners that work with them. If you have tax professionals, a legal team that you want to work with, Coastal Capital will include everybody in the conversation that you deem is necessary to get you to your financial goals. Listen, they have done a terrific job for our family. I feel very secure with Philip and his staff that they have done the job for us. It's a lifetime relationship they want to build with you as well. Go to coastalcapitaladv.com for more information. Member FINRA SIPC. We'll take a break, come back here live at Mike Anderson's Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Windows, doors, siding, and shutters, Relief Windows has it all for you. Your homeowners association require wood windows. We're proud to be the premier gelled wood windows company at Relief Windows. These wooden windows combine the beauty of real wood with high-tech energy efficiency features for all climate zones, specially built for extreme weather conditions here in South Louisiana. Built using RLS wood, gelled windows come with a 20-year general warranty and a lifetime limited warranty against rot and termites, providing years of beauty and minimal maintenance. Sure wish I'd known about these gelled windows from Relief Windows at the original construction of my home. Relief Windows and reliefwindows.com.
Live at Lunch with Ott and Yanni from Mike Anderson Seafood on Lee Drive on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
And we return here at Mike Anderson's, where it is celebration week here for the 4th of July and the National Championship Baseball team. $1 select martinis with red, white, and blue and purple and gold themes to them. With any entree, you get a $1 martini, light, fruity, fresh, all week long here at Mike Anderson's for only $1. All right, we got to finish emptying out the Manning passing camp notebook here, Max. We did most of it yesterday. There's still a few things that we didn't get to yesterday, so kind of wrap that up. But you had a chance. Todd McShay was down there, and he did a podcast yesterday. You had a chance to listen to. Mostly, you were in agreement with what McShay was posting yesterday.
Yeah, his standouts to me made a lot of sense. But his two top standouts that he sort of started his show with were Nussmeier and Klubnik. He was impressed, and that's no surprise to anybody. But he was very impressed with just how much coaching they were doing to some of these, camp, members, attendees who were in high school learning, how to play the game, how, they really were talkative, commanding of their offense, just comfortable. They were both very comfortable, and he mentioned that. And I didn't really get to see him, coach any of the high schoolers, so that was interesting sort of development there. He said that Klubnik could pass as like a high school coach right now. Like he could coach a high school team right now.
It seems like he's going in. He's not the favorite for the Heisman, but he is the favorite in most circles, small favorite, to be the number one pick in the draft. So, 2 years of starting experience. He's got, he's up over that threshold now. I can see that. And he's, his same program the whole time. He hasn't had to go through a transfer. Neither is Nussmeier. These two guys, for where they are in their, fourth-year guys, they should be at that spot.
So, yeah, I mean, he had a lot of good things to say about Nussmeier, just how there was obviously a lot of support for him, too, just being in Thibodeau, but how he carried himself. He was very impressed. And then the throws, he actually said he was explaining how he went through the Canes. I forget what it's actually called, but they throw it 30 yards into a basketball hoop, and he won that competition. But how he was actually just the competitive nature about him, this is what impressed McShay. He was watching and waiting and letting everyone else go. He was the last player to throw, to attempt it. He just wanted to see everybody throw it, see the ball kind of glide against the wind a little bit, so he got a bit of a teach, right, like a read on a putt, and then threw it. And he was the last one and made it. So he actually videoed it. He was like, I'll just video it. I'll regret if I don't video this. And sure enough, McShay videos it right behind him, and he makes it. So that's a story that he told, and it stood out to him as just, how much where he was, in his preparation and just how he taught the Manning Passing Academy throughout the week.
The number one story in week number one of the college football season, we'll spend all of August doing this, really most of July too. Ohio State, Texas. Two new quarterbacks, sort of new quarterbacks. And of course those last game day. That'll be the top story in week one. But 1A, and not far behind it, is going to be, are these the top two quarterbacks in college football this year, Klubnik and Nussmeier? And I got a problem with anybody that puts Manning ahead of either one of those kids right now. At the end of the season, I may agree with you, but right now I'm not gonna do that. So
he talks about how much Lenore Sellers could grow as well. He's still learning. He's still fresh in a lot of these things. He's a little bit more quiet, more reserved than the other two that I just mentioned. But he said the ball just jumps out of his hands. He can make any throw, and that's very much what I saw as well. John Mateer, he echoed a lot of what I said about just his size, how he was impressed. He said he looked like a fullback in the way he was built. So but a lot of it in the lower body, so it's just strength there. Sometimes you get those big armed quarterbacks that they lose that flexibility, and so it affects their short to intermediate accuracy. But that wasn't a problem for him, so he mentioned John Mateer. The couple other standouts that I didn't get to mention yesterday, who did well in the competitions, but really one of them who stood out to me was Sawyer Robertson, who's now in his, he started all last year at Baylor, but he was pretty impressive throughout the season. Baylor's offense is what carried the day for them last season. Their defense under Dave Aranda was not so hot. But Sawyer Robertson, he makes everything look quick and easy, and that was one of the standouts that Todd McShay pointed to as just a guy he'll have to kind of look into a little bit more. He didn't really have any tape on him, but he's going to go back and watch and kind of see what his tape looked like, because he was impressed, almost from more of a pro-level standpoint of where he could be, maybe a next-level arm. But, Baylor is in a wide-open Big 12, and Texas Tech, they've got Baron Morton. the Big 12 is going to get a team in the college football playoff this year. And we saw last year it was very much open. We saw Iowa State get in the mix and make things interesting. But I'm curious to see what the Big 12 looks like. But Baylor and Sawyer Robertson, and Texas Tech, there's money there. Baron Morton, he's been there a long time. So Sawyer Robertson was somebody who stood out to McShay, and I couldn't agree more. He was one of the guys who I wasn't expecting anything from, who absolutely stood out.
Next year when you go to the Manning Passing Academy, you going to bring Jimmy?
Sure.
I think you should.
We'll bring him down. Maybe the Mannings would personally invite him, to down at the field.
I could think, he would probably appreciate the invitation. You can go out and party with you and Jordan. You guys had a great time down there.
That's true. It's good to see Jordan down there.
We'll take our final time out here, come back, wrap things up live at Mike Anderson's Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Lofton Staffing Services. We match our workers with the most sought-after employers in the Baton Rouge area. It's a Lofton, you more than just another employee. We care about your interests, and we'll match you with a company that needs your skills. You can complete an application. You can schedule an interview. You can even browse jobs at lofton.jobs. Lofton also offers an unlimited $100 referral bonus. Lofton Staffing Services. We've been putting people to work since 1979. 924-0200 and lofton.jobs.
Live at Lunch with Ott and Yanni from Mike Anderson Seafood on Lee Drive on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
An upset at Wimbledon?
Yeah, another one. Alexander Zverev, who this one continued from yesterday. There's an 11 p.m. curfew at Wimbledon, so they can't have a match go past that point. They went through 2 sets. It was split one apiece last night. I watched that game yesterday afternoon, but they continued today, and the Frenchman, I don't know his name, Arthur Rinderknecht.
Is this the one that the chair asked him if they wanted to keep going or not?
Oh, that was Taylor Fritz, the American, who was also in trouble. He had just come back from a 2-0 deficit. He had tied it at 2 sets apiece in the 4th set. He was down in the 4th set tiebreaker, and he had the momentum. And they had about 45 minutes to finish the match, and the tournament referee came in and said, hey, if y'all both agree, we'll continue this match, but we have to stop at 11 o'clock, so it might be at a very inconvenient time in the match. Do y'all want to continue? Fritz had the momentum. He thought they could finish the 5th set in time, but they ultimately decided to push it to today, and Fritz ended up winning in that 5th set.
They didn't want to start something that they couldn't finish.
Exactly.
This sounds vaguely familiar. Where have I heard that?
Down the road into the box?
Where have I heard that before? Again, $1 select martinis here during 4th of July week at Mike Anderson, celebrating the 4th of July and the LSU Tiger baseball team. Come on by and get them $1 martinis with a purchase of an entree. Tomorrow we're at Iverstein, getting you ready for the 4th of July. From Max, for Jordan back in the studio, I'm Charles Hanniger saying thank you and good afternoon. Stay tuned for Hunt Palmer, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.